Created in 2005 and hosted by security industry veterans, Paul Security Weekly is your source for in-depth coverage of the latest vulnerabilities, exploits, and security research. Our weekly security news discussion dives deep into the security issues we face today and potential solutions in a fun and lively atmosphere. Each week we bring on guests from the security community to learn about their journey and discuss topics relevant to their work and research. You can also subscribe to our show by visiting securityweekly.com/subscribe or look for Paul Security Weekly in your favorite podcast catcher. We've recorded a ton of content over the years, so we created Spotify playlists featuring some of our favorite episodes, including interviews with Marcus Random, John McAfee, and Chris Roberts, to name a few. You can find them at securityweekly.com/starter packs.
Welcome back to Enterprise Security Weekly. You can maximize your investment at BlackHat 2024 with a one-on-one on-site interview. Drive thought leadership and boost brand awareness with Cyber Risk Alliance's expert editorial team from Security Weekly and SC Media. Act now. Limited interview slots are available. You can secure yours today at securityweekly.com/BlackHat 2024. And if you want to look at what these look like, you can check out our YouTube channel, Security Weekly on YouTube, and you can see some of the interviews that we did back at RSA. All right, now for the Enterprise Security Weekly news. Here also, I've got a URL for you. You can check out securityweekly.com/ESW369. That is the number of this episode, and you'll be able to see any snarky comments I've made there. Click the links to the stories we're going to be talking about today, and follow along. All right. Let's see. So I've been working on streamlining here, Darwin. I'm sure you're probably noticing. We don't have 30 items in the news here.
You knocked it out the park, and you've been knocking it out the park these past couple of episodes. I could just quickly land on our show notes and know exactly immediately what we're going to talk about. There's less than 10 top stories compared to 30. So it really makes show prep so much easier, and we're covering what's high priority for our listeners. So this is amazing, and we still have kept our squirrel stories. So Katie, what do you think?
I was just going to say, it's just like what we need to do in the SOC. Focus on the top priorities and move ahead, reduce the noise, and we'll get to it all.
Easier said than done.
Of course it is.
If you don't have ADHD.
What? Who? What'd you say? Who? What? Huh?
Yeah, and like I said, if you're missing any of us going over every single funding and acquisition going on out there, you can go to Return on Security. You can sign up for the security-funded newsletter, and as always, you can check out that stuff there. That was one of my primary sources for this. We're still going to cover some of the biggest acquisition news and funding news out there, some of the most interesting stuff. We'll still have a few of those, but definitely trying to be a little bit more efficient here. And with that, let's actually get into the news. So links. I found out about links from Will Lin, who we talked to back in episode 364. He's very happy seeing other companies go into the space because his company was one of the first talking about identity security, focusing more on the security side of identity, not just governance, going a little bit beyond that, detection, response, all that kind of stuff. And generally, thinking it's a good sign seeing other companies go into the space, right? You don't want to be the sole company or one of three companies in a category, because that tends to suggest it's not really a category.
Yeah, having new competitors emerge in your problem space is great validation for the problem that you're solving. Also, the amount of money that's been put behind links, which just emerged from stealth, is 33 million through Series A. And so seeing that big investors like Index Ventures and CyberStarts are backing a company that it's a direct competitor, it makes sense why William is happy and thrilled to see this, right? Obviously, AKA Identity has been at it for a while as well. And their sauce is like they're bringing data engineering practices to identity security and really tapping into the existing IAM stack, which is somewhat similar to what we see in the copy of Link Security. So This is great news. I think they have a beautiful website. Katie, I don't know if you've jumped into their website. I'm sure like you would find it pretty appealing. But yeah, I think this is great validation for the space.
Yeah,
I gotta
and
check
it's
it
one
out
of
now.
these spaces that is really ripe for innovation, because we've had so many
Mhm.
historical problems, right? And we're now converging on some of the technological advancements. Not to sound all buzzwordy, but we're definitely at a place where this is a lot more manageable. It's not there yet. It's going to take a while. People are going to not just have to change tools, but processes. And that's sometimes harder to do, right? Because we've been doing things a certain way for a very long time. This is really an evolution. So I think this is great. Like you said, whenever you're the quote first in a space, it feels good, but if you are the only company in a space, you know that there's a problem. And
Yeah.
eventually we'll hit a tipping point where everybody, and this is in air quotes, everybody is doing the same thing that Links and was it AXA or do we call it AXA?
AKA,
AXA,
Um
AKA,
a
AKA.
no,
okay.
AKA. AXA
Okay.
is an insurance company. We had this mix up
Dang it.
on episode
Did I get it
364.
wrong
We did.
again?
You
I'm gonna go
Yes,
did.
fix it.
Adrian.
You did. I'm
Dang it.
blaming Adrian.
Shame.
Yeah, totally blaming Adrian. But in any case,
Nobody tell Will. Don't tell Will.
nobody tell Will. If you're listening, just don't tell him. But in any case, Lynx and AKA will soon be joined by a lot of copycat companies who may not necessarily do exactly what they do. And the space will become crowded. It will become confusing. And eventually, like every other category in cybersecurity, it will weed itself out either through acquisitions or through a better clarification of what it means to be in this space, because right now um there's just an area where a lot of people are going to jump in, and I bet this time next year we're going to see 10x the number of people doing this, because it's such an important space, for one, and two,
Identity's huge.
it's huge, and it's moving pretty rapidly.
The
And
largest
I think
segment
this,
of
yeah,
cybersecurity is identity.
Yeah.
that's interesting. And there's also that like buzzword term of like identity is the new perimeter, and so we've been hearing that for
Hmm.
years now.
Yep.
So it's like when is something no longer the new perimeter? When is it the old perimeter? Um, but anyways, there's another trend that this company emerging from stealth highlights. It's the fact that since Link's technology plugs into your existing IAM stack, it's sort of considered like a data fabric play where it hooks up to all of your existing tools, extracts the data, brings it to a centralized place where they can do data science and other magic and correlation and cross pollination of that data to surface the highest priority risk and stuff that security teams should really be caring about. There's been a number of companies that are using the same approach but for different use cases, with Avalor being one of them. Avalor, which was just acquired by Zscaler for 350 mil back in like April, March of this year, would hook up into a bunch of your scanning tools and bone scanning tools, and then do some pollination and correlation to surface the highest priority vulnerabilities. And as we know, probably like only 1 or 2% of critical vulnerabilities are actually worth prioritizing. And so, similar with identity, especially if you have a massive identity estate, say like over 10,000 employees, it could get messy extremely fast. And so pinpointing the identities with the most excessive permissions or admin permissions is crucial. And you have to do it in a timely fashion, or else you may have like a disgruntled ex-employee with admin privileges that can do some real damage. And so I love seeing the same approach being applied to the identity space, and it kind of begs to wonder like what's the next place where we'll see a similar approach. So just wanted to call that out. That is an emerging trend.
Yep. All right.
And by the way,
Moving on
Darwin, I
to
do like their
acquisition
website.
rumors.
It is very
Yeah, go ahead.
pleasing to the eye. I like
It's
it.
great.
It's calming. I like. At first I thought it was a lemon, but it's a bumblebee. So either
It,
way, I like it. Nice color
There we
palette.
go.
it's very breezy. It's very very
Oh,
breezy website.
indeed.
Yeah, I
You got to
love
go
it.
check it out to get that joke. Yeah. So Wiz walks away from this $23 billion deal. I'm not really surprised. This one never seemed to, and so the reason it didn't sit right with me is Wiz is the largest of what grew out of CSPMs and is now CNAP. So, comprehensive cloud security. A vendor like this shouldn't go to one of the big cloud service providers. I don't think that makes sense. I think that kind of hurts their position as an independent cloud security company that covers all the cloud, uh, you know, platforms, and it really, I as a customer, I would worry if Wiz or Orca went to Amazon, Microsoft, or Google. That the company that owns them is going to get preferential treatment. Maybe vulnerability scans won't hit as hard on those. Like I'd be, practically, would they do that? I don't think so. I think they do the right thing, but it just doesn't seem. It seems like there's so much potential for conflict of interest, and so I'm kind of glad that they're staying independent. Any thoughts,
I'm
you guys?
not hugely surprised. Um, because from the beginning, they have said their goal was to IPO and be the largest security company on the planet. And they've certainly had, if it can be said that a company has had a meteoric rise, Wiz is it. They're a very new company for the stage they're at. They've conquered a lot. They've garnered a lot of press. They've garnered a lot of, we don't know exactly what their numbers are, but what's being reported is certainly impressive. And, I have to question whether this was a strategic move to get a little more attention pre IPO, or if this was a serious consideration for them. I mean, it's certainly flattering. If somebody came to me and said, I'm going to offer you $23 billion for blah, I'd be like, thank you very much. Give me your money and I will go quietly away. But their goal has always been to be the biggest security company, and you can't do that if you're going to be acquired.
Yeah, so these offers come in constantly, and they're usually not in view of the public. So the fact that this
Exactly.
was did come into the public view, it seems very much like a strategic thing for them as they plan to IPO.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in line with that train of thought. Not much more to add here. I think Wiz is often in the spotlight. They know how to play chess. They crushed Laceworks valuation. They floated around Sentinel-1 acquisition rumors. Whoever is doing their strategy and PR public relations stuff, they're on a roll. So who knows? I don't think that the deal they ever took it seriously. Um, but I do believe that they have an extremely bright future, and it's a scary time not to be at Wiz and be a cloud security competitor. So
I wouldn't want to be going up against them, no.
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, and
Fortunately,
I
it's
mean,
not my job.
arguably
Yay!
Lacework, they did their part to crush their own valuation too, from what I've heard.
Fair.
Agreed.
Um, all right, moving on to some new folks in the market. We've got BlackHat USA's Startup Spotlight competition. Finalists have been announced, and this is similar to RSA's Innovation Sandbox. Almost identical. Like the only part so you submit a 5-minute video, they judge it, they pick a top number of them to compete on stage at the event, and then a winner is chosen. So the really the only major difference between RSA's Innovation Sandbox and BlackHat Startup Spotlight is the number of finalists, where it's 10 at RSA, it's only 4 at BlackHat, and those 4 are dry run security, which does this is their wording, delivers near instant security code reviews. Gnostic, who a friend of mine, Sonil Yu's company, and I wouldn't call him a friend, but I know Gotti. We actually go way back, just on and off, have exchanged stuff, and they provide need-to-know based access controls for large language models. Very interesting approach to data access control with what they're building here. So Gnostic is I've gotten a briefing on it. It's very interesting. Leak Signal empowers organizations with protection against sensitive data leakage. And RAD Security, which I want to say was in the Innovation Sandbox also, a
It was.
behavioral
Yep.
cloud detection and response solution. So
Yeah, it, pretty compelling list of startups for this competition. Um, Dry Run is was founded by James Wickett, who also
oh,
founded
really?
Lone Star AppSecCon. Yep, and
Yeah,
so he
I know
founded
James.
LasCon and also part of the Signal Sciences crew, and then also Ken Johnson, who runs the Absolute AppSec podcast. So I'm really excited to see what's the latest on the dry run product. I know that they've been doing some pretty cool stuff with LLMs and context windows and tokens. There's Llama 3.1 was just released, so the capability for them to pull for like deeper context and be able to analyze a bigger code base continuously just expands. And so that's they have some pretty cool applications of Gen AI in the AppSec space. Rad Security, founded by Jimmy Mesta and Brooke Moda. They started out as a Kubernetes security company and now more so focusing on a broader cloud native security context with a CDR solution. So um,
Mhm.
there's a lot of high powered startups for the Black Hat competition, which is younger than the RSA Innovation Sandbox. So I'm excited for it.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're gonna. So I'm working on getting Gnostic on, and if you know somebody, Darwin, at well, I mean, Wicket would be great to have on. Yeah, if you've got suggestions, let's chat later about who else we want to try and have on the podcast, or if anybody listening has any suggestions or wants to hear uh, some of the founders from some of these other startups that are in the competition come on. Let's do that. We got I think still one more slot Black Hat week to interview somebody if they're not too busy during Black Hat to come on the show. I will not be at Black Hat, so I will be again doing that remotely from Brazil. I'll still be in Brazil Black Hat week, so so that'll be interesting if we can fill that out and get 2 of them. So CrowdStrike, the preliminary post-incident, this is a very long process. This isn't even the final thing. This is the thing before the final, maybe the thing before the thing that's before the final. Um, this is going to be a very thorough thing. Maybe the U.S. government says, okay, we're also going to do a review. And 18 months from now, we'll get yet another report of what happened. But
Which
this
will be
gives us a
very useful
pretty,
18 months from now.
I mean, I thought the Equifax one was very useful, even though it came 18 months after the event. I still reference that thing like crazy. So I'll take it. If they're going to do that, I'll take
Okay.
it. But yeah, there have been a lot of assumptions out there. The first thing everybody tries to do is armchair quarterback this thing. We had somebody talking about like the death of C++ as a result of this. Like we should stop using C++ and just so many assumptions on what went wrong. And CrowdStrike must not have any kind of staging for their stuff. They must not be doing any checking. Of course, none of that's true, CrowdStrike is an enormous company. You don't get to this size with this many customers, over 12 years without, building a, pretty big engineering um, component, with all the checks that you would expect there. But it's a complex product. So I learned some interesting things about this. Apparently, they have software updates. They have two types of content updates. One is a sensor content update, and one is a rapid response content update. So there are three different types of updates here. They're all handled a little bit differently. The thing that broke the world, that broke over 8 million laptops in less than half an hour, whatever it was a rapid response content update. So that's the TLDR of it, is the rapid response content updates didn't go through the same level of checks. They ignored any kind of tiered updates that you had configured in CrowdStrike, because you can do that. You can have early adopters within your CrowdStrike systems. You can have a second tier and then a late adopter tier. So you can actually break out updates to your systems like that to try and avoid this type of thing. But rapid response updates, ignore all that. That's only for software updates and sensor updates or sensor content updates. So that's why it hit everything all at once. And the fix is basically, their rapid response updates are going to have to go through more checks now, because something got through. A bug in their automated checking missed something, and that's why it broke stuff. So just a bug in some software that was supposed to check these things going out. It should have been very routine, and it wasn't. It was just a strange character in a weird place, that overwrote memory in the kernel and made everything go. So that's
Technology.
that. I wasn't very TLDR, but there's some other interesting items here, like it only took them 78 minutes to pull it back. So that's in our previous conversation, Edward Wu was talking about like how do you pick a winner between CrowdStrike and Sentinel-1? And in my head, I'm thinking, well, between 4 a.m. UTC on and 5 a.m. UTC on Friday, July 18th, you could pick a winner. But
Yeah, I actually
yeah,
got alerted about this. Well, I didn't actually get alerted
you had a
because I was
write-up done
asleep.
before I even woke up.
Well, what happened is obviously this started before I was awake, and I do in fact turn off the ringer on my phone, the notifications on my phone. But when I woke up, I saw there were a whole, because my company's Israeli based, and so there was a whole bunch of noise going on. Our CEO was already on it with our PR team that's in
Yeah,
London,
they're 7 hours
and I
ahead of you,
sort
right?
of right. And here's the thing about me, fun fact, personal detail, I can't see a freaking thing on my phone without my glasses. So I looked at my phone, didn't really realize what was going on because I can't see a freaking thing without my glasses. And then my husband called. He's a carpenter, so he's up really early, and he never calls me in the morning. He knows better than that. I am not a morning person. Yeah, exactly. And he said, "You need to get on your computer now." And I'm like, "Why?" He said, "Trust me." And it was at 7 in the morning. And I'm like, I'm in my pajamas and I go downstairs, my huge commute of 30
I haven't
seconds.
had
And I'm
coffee,
sitting
or
there and
you're
I'm
not a
like,
coffee drinker, are you?
"Oh, yeah, but not on Friday, the
Oh,
18th
you are.
or 19th, whatever it was." So I sit down at my computer and I go, "Oh, shit." And there are a million messages. And at 7 a.m., I started writing a response based on the things our CEO had been talking about for 7 hours or whatever it was. I guess 3 hours at that point. And I didn't get out of my pajamas until like noon. And I didn't get my first cup of coffee until like noon. So yeah, everybody was in a complete and utter panic on Friday. I had a whole lot of fun. Some people did not like our take on what was going on, and that's okay. That's fine. Darwin had a wonderful write up, and that was from a lot earlier. I was thinking, what? Don't you sleep? What the hell is wrong with you? But yeah, it was quite a thing. And like you said, Adrian, like it's really easy to armchair quarterback. it's really easy to blame. I saw a lot of really snarky memes and posts on social media and people calling for the quote low-level engineer who pushed the button to be fired. And it's never one person. It is never, ever, well, okay, maybe not never, ever, but it's almost never one person. There's something that happened. In this case, it was one little flaw. And so should this guy lose his job? If he does, I feel bad for him because he's a scapegoat, or she is a
I
scapegoat, or they are a scapegoat. But
I
in
don't think
all likely,
you probably can't even nail it down to one person. Like it's
you
too big a
pro
company.
you
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
can't. And when you're a company this big and when there is a breach, it's going to be big. If you're a small little startup, your impact is going to be less. And it's just what it is. And so we should all be very careful about the stones we cast, because it could be
Yeah.
us. It could be our company tomorrow, literally tomorrow.
Well, if you get as big as CrowdStrike, it could be. I mean, that is
Well, no,
part of
it
the
could be
problem here.
it could be our company tomorrow, just on a smaller scale. And it won't
Right.
impact, but if you're responsible for something, or part of a team that's responsible for something,
Yeah.
you're going to feel bad whether you're a 20-person company or a 20,000-person company.
But the scale is part of the justification for giving Microsoft such a hard time at Microsoft 365 getting popped by the Chinese, because once you get to a certain scale and you can have a negative impact on millions of machines, not just thousands of machines, the expectation that you're doing a little bit more diligence there, that like you need to understand the gravity of what happens
Yeah.
when there's an oopsie uh, at the scale of shutting
Yes.
down airlines and planes not flying anymore, right?
Your
Like
risk modeling has to be significantly more rigorous when you're a Microsoft, when you're a CrowdStrike, but it doesn't mean
yeah,
something's not going to happen. And I know plenty of people who are stuck in airports for 6 hours because of this, and it sucks.
yeah.
I've heard some folks have been stuck at airports for like 4 days.
Oh, geez.
Delta
Yeah.
has had a very rough time
Delta
getting their
customers.
stuff back
Yeah.
up. Yeah, Delta. I think a review is due there as well. But yeah, so I woke
Delta
up to the
doesn't need outside help to have like hard times like this. They've had some self-imposed issues as well. They've got some technical debt there that they really need to work out. It seems from the outside.
and that's right,
Armchair
and that's probably what
quarterbacking
made
again.
yeah. Well, the airline industry has its own problems, but I think the reason why Delta has been struggling more than other airlines is because they have those problems you allude to, Adrian. Understaffing, IT tech debt, all that good stuff, right? Well, a couple of points on the CrowdStrike stuff. I know folks are probably nauseous of hearing about it so much, but yeah, I woke up at 3:30 in the morning that morning, kind of just out of nowhere, and I don't have social media on my phone during the week, so I was like, can't fall back asleep. Let me just check the stock market.
Not
I
smart.
look at yeah,
Not
I check the
smart.
stock market. Everything is pretty much flat. CrowdStrike is taking a freaking nosedive. I'm like, is this a glitch?
Yeah.
What is going on? I take a screenshot, post it to a WhatsApp group I'm in with a couple creators, and James Bertolti, he writes a lot about AppSec and stuff on LinkedIn. He's like, yeah, their stuff broke. Here's the Reddit thread for it. And then I started digging into it, and I'm just like mind blown that something at this scale is happening. And of course, I write to my audience for the cybersecurity post. I'm like, I need to write something up quick because there's so much like misinformation and hysteria around this being a cyber attack that kind of just gives the quick hits on what's going on. At the end of the day, I think that this will be a blessing in disguise for a lot of companies because they were able to test out their disaster recovery and resilience plans without suffering the true implications of having to go through like a ransomware attack or something of that nature. And then I think a cybersecurity review board review is in line. A CISA CSRB, the same organization that went and reviewed Microsoft and dropped that like super hard hammer
Yeah,
on Microsoft
CSRB.
back in like April. Yeah, in April, I think that report came out. There needs to be
Cyber
a
Safety Review
thorough.
Board.
Exactly. There has to be a thorough third party review done here. The only thing is that the CSRB is chaired by none other than Dmitry Alperovich, who is co-founder of Crowdstrike. So
Right. Yeah.
it'll be
Yeah.
interesting.
I mean, he doesn't join in that. So I don't think he was involved on the Microsoft one either. So the whole board
Okay,
doesn't have to take part in it. That's why they have so many people on the board. So if there's a potential conflict of interest, they have stock in one of the companies, being investigated, they can step out on that one.
good.
Yeah.
Glad to hear that they have those checks and balances because otherwise, it wouldn't
Yeah.
be as third party or unbiased as as it's supposed to be. But those are my quick thoughts on that.
Yeah.
Obviously, many more details to come still, right?
So now what you're saying,
Yep.
Darwin, is you have cybersecurity prescience.
Presence. In what sense?
Prescience. You could
Yeah, see the
you
future.
woke up for no reason in the middle of the night,
Yeah.
and then you just knew something. So
Yeah.
you can
And
foretell the cybersecurity future.
I hope that's the case, and sorry for not getting it at first attempt. Prescience. It's a new word. English is my second language. Spanish is my first language, so that kind of just went completely over my head. But yeah, I usually have been waking up around 5 a.m., 6 a.m. This time around, I woke up at 3:30. Was not tired at all, and I'm like, well, the gym's not open. I don't feel like doing anything. Let's check stocks, and boom, lo and behold. So I'll let you know if I'm able to call the next big breach or something like that. Then maybe we have a business opportunity on our hands that we could get rich off of. But yeah, I'll keep you queued in on that.
Okay, you do that.
Yeah, it's so if Darwin quits his job and becomes a day trader, if you're listening to this podcast, you know why.
I've thought about it in the past, and then the market corrected, and I lost some money. But I have thought about it. And anybody listening thinking about becoming a full-time day trader, think again. Don't do it. It's not smart.
Yeah, don't do it.
You will always have a job in cybersecurity if you want one. Maybe not in day trading.
Exactly. Yeah. Once you run out of money, you're done.
So there are mistakes you can make in tech that take down your customers. There are mistakes you can make in tech that take down your employees. And then there's mistakes you can make in tech that impact the global climate temporarily. And story number 5, the CrowdStrike oopsie was big enough to impact the global temperature by grounding planes. So
It did.
that's good to know. That you can make a software issue, a software error that big. Yeah. Planes have that big of an impact.
Yeah. I was gonna
Hotter.
say, like, is that why it's been like high 70s, low 80s here in Austin over the past week? It hasn't necessarily
opposite.
it doesn't feel like
opposite,
summer.
hotter.
Oh, it makes it hotter. Okay.
Yeah. So contrails, so they did some studies after 9/11, and I think they did more after the pandemic, both times when planes, the only times when you could study the effect of planes being grounded for an extended period of time. And apparently contrails encourage more cloud formation, and that cloud formation has a cooling effect, projects more shade on the ground. And I'm probably screwing it all up. So go check out the story for the actual links to the studies and the scientists' explanations. But my cursory read of it, that's how I understood it. Is less clouds means more sun rays hitting the earth, so higher temperature.
Course. Yeah.
1 to 2 degrees hotter after after CrowdStruck all of Delta's computers. All right. So number 6, not a whole lot to talk about that. I love little tools like this. Like in terms of size, like if CrowdStrike is a story that's at 100, this is like a 1. Like it's not a big story. But I love tools that just do simple things to improve security. Like, and Bullfrog is just a simple GitHub action to block outbound traffic in GitHub workflows, which is one of the simplest things you can do to prevent attackers from being able to do stuff if they get inside your environments, or preventing them from getting inside your environments in the first place. A lot of exploits will fail if they can't tunnel back out, right? If they can't create a TCP connection back out. There are ways around that, but like using DNS or something like that. But in general, uh, reducing outbound access from servers. You shouldn't be able to browse the internet on your servers. If you can, you're doing it wrong.
You got to limit the blast
Next
radius and
one,
attack surface. Yeah,
absolutely.
that's all on that one.
Great essay.
Bullfrog. Yeah, Bullfrog is yeah. Go ahead, Adrian. Sorry.
Yeah, actually, going back to CrowdStrike, something I wanted to mention that I hadn't realized is a lot of folks out there are conflating EDR with antivirus, and they think EDR has replaced antivirus. And I find that interesting. I actually had to go do a sanity check because I used to cover the endpoint space back when CrowdStrike, Cylance, Sentinel-1 were just coming up, and they hadn't replaced the Symantec's and the McAfee's of the world yet. Hadn't toppled them from their thrones, and folks were intentionally leaving EDR and next-gen AV or AV separate because a lot of their customers were running it on older systems that weren't as performant, and EDR takes a big hit to the system. So so yeah, I had to go back and check, and sure enough, yes, these products are still separate. You still buy them separately, and what caused a big CrowdStrike outage was an AV product. Because AV products often have to hook into the kernel to prevent malicious code from starting at boot up. There are several persistence methods that you want to prevent by hooking into the kernel. Microsoft even has a special way for you to hook into the kernel early at boot, which is why it sent it into this endless reboot, right? And EDR generally doesn't. EDR doesn't. There's still not a whole lot out there in terms of the R. A lot of it's just detection. It's gathering stuff about your computer, which is a very different job than what your antivirus is doing. So I just thought I'd throw that out there, remind folks, EDR is not antivirus, and they're separate products with different SKUs. Oftentimes people get them bundled, which is why I think they're conflating them, but they still are separate code bases, separate products. Maybe they run as the same agent with some vendors. I don't know. Some vendors only sell AV and not EDR. Some vendors sell EDR but not AV. So just wanted to throw that out there.
An amazing distinction, and probably a topic for another day, is how the CrowdStrike outage has reignited the conversations of platformization versus best of breed, and relying on one or two security vendors as as your sole security provider. And so this conversation, this CrowdStrike stuff has reignited that, and it's something we could talk about in another episode, but just wanted to surface that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So I've got a story here about splitting the CISO role. Just talked to a healthcare CISO the other day, and almost apologizing to her that a lot of this AI evaluation, AI safety stuff, testing LLMs, making sure the large language model won't tell you how to make a bomb, that kind of stuff. I think a lot of that's going to fall to CISOs to do that work. As if they weren't already doing enough. A lot of CISOs are taking on fraud. They're taking on chief risk types of stuff. So it's interesting time to talk about like are we piling on too much? I think the answer to that's pretty simple. We're probably piling on too much, right? At this point. So now the question is, if we split the role, what does it look like? What do we call it? How do we manage the two different roles? And we could do probably a whole segment on that. So we don't have to spend a ton of time on it here. I think at this point it's more like food for thought. Like, how would we divide that up if we we're going to split those roles?
Uh, yeah, as you mentioned, I think the answer is yes. We're piling too much onto the CISO role. When I think about all the regulatory compliance and legal aspects to the role, and you mentioned your friend is a healthcare CISO, so that person has to think about high trust, HIPAA, SEC, disclosing breaches if this is a publicly traded healthcare company. There's a lot on the legal and compliance side. And then not only that, you have to think about how to secure the actual business and technologies. There's a lot there. So maybe that's one place where we could split is kind of lean a little bit more on the attorneys in the firm and things of that nature. But you do have to kind of be an octopus as a CISO, which is sad to see.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
And
a
it
lot of
will
stuff is
definitely have impact on how many people want to take on the role, because it's
exactly.
already going back
yeah,
a couple of years, we're starting to see severe personal implications from something like a breach. And I'm not weighing in on ethics and morality here, but there's some cases where a CISO is a scapegoat, and the umbrella of responsibilities gets bigger and bigger. And if there is a potential for a CISO to be personally liable, even, going to jail or being financially reliable in the event of a big compromise, it's not going to make this an attractive career for anybody. And that's problematic.
Yep.
yeah, yeah. Nobody wants to be set up for failure.
No.
All right. I want to try and get through the last three stories here in the next 5 minutes. So, um, two of them are basically personal rants. So I'm sorry, but well, I think the backlash against AI scraping, like that's going to have a big impact on everything, right? Like I just learned that if you want Reddit results in your web searches, Google's your only option now because they did a deal with Reddit. Nobody else gets Reddit results in their searches anymore. Um, so I feel like we're really punching ourselves in the face with this large language model stuff, and it's insatiable appetite for training data. Another example here was um, iFixit. Big fan of iFixit. Big fan of right to repair and being able to fix your stuff. And it's a personal hobby. I love taking broken stuff and fixing it, getting it working again. And Anthropic's AI scraper was hitting their website a million times a day, a million times a day, even though they clearly said, "Hey, you're not allowed to scrape our website." They're still doing it, and so the CEO went to Twitter and was like, "Hey guys, stop beating the crap out of our website, okay?"
You're
And
DDoSing us.
right, right, and it's very spicy. I recommend going and checking that thread. In fact, iFixit is actively poisoning some of that, and I mentioned that in one of our earlier interviews, where they have something like what is it? What's the best way to remove a data connector from an orange? So they have a because anybody in the community can create a guide to fixing something on iFixit. That's one of the features of the website, and so they're putting fake ones up there, just to mess with stuff like Claude AI and Chat GPT and stuff like that. Um,
Yeah, this
but
is
yeah,
this is a huge
it's
problem. Yeah, Adrian, I was just going to say this is a huge problem for the two reasons you mentioned, but also the fact that all these AI models are being trained on like public knowledge and what's on these public facing websites. And a lot of what's on these websites in today's day and age is AI generated content. And so
Mhm.
if the content that's being generated is kind of like average, mediocre, or polluted, or poisoned, as you mentioned with the iFixit stuff, then it's only going to lead, like, we're going to have like we're going to be working with polluted or kind of just overall very crappy quality, or we're eventually regressing to the mean, and going to have like pretty crappy models, right? So
Mhm.
iFixit is dealing with it the way that they see best fit. But I think the implications of this are fairly massive, as you mentioned, and so it'll be fun to see play out. Not
Yeah,
good
it
for
just reminds
society.
me of the whole streaming wars where the consumer is really who gets hurt in all this, right? Where, you buy an Apple TV and Prime Video isn't there, because they're a competitor, and you buy a Fire TV stick and or Google Chromecast and Apple TV isn't there, or YouTube isn't
Mhm.
on Apple TV. Like it's just a mess for consumers. Yeah, so it seems like it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. Next, we get the legal case. Federal court dismissed the bulk of the SEC's complaints against SolarWinds, and they kind of summarized some of it here. Don't have a legal background, so I kind of focused on the part I can understand. So the SEC sought to hold a CISO personally liable for a lack of detail in a company's SEC filings. So that was struck down. Base liability in a company's internal scoring against a non-binding cybersecurity framework, which is the NIST CSF, struck down, and also struck down treating an issuer's cybersecurity practices as internal accounting controls. So pretty scary stuff if you're the CISO for a public company. So CISOs for
Yeah.
public companies, I
This gets
imagine,
back to the
feel a little bit better.
Yeah, this gets back to the previous conversation about what is the scope of responsibility and liability here.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little
Yeah.
crazy.
And our squirrel story, you got to click the link. As with most of my squirrel stories, you have to click the link because there's something to look at. Want to get your response to something. Generally, I hate disposable vapes. So I don't hate all vapes. Like I kind of like the community that kind of okay, somebody hacked an FM radio into their vape, and like they customize it and stuff like that. Like I'm cool with that. Like tuner culture, like car tuner culture, but with a vape, fine, go for it. But the stuff where once the vape juice runs out, it goes into trash with a lithium ion battery, that's been used maybe 30 times out of the 2,000 uses that battery could have had. Like that makes me mad. And so this kind of takes that to an extreme. This is a disposable vape that's essentially like an iPod Nano, also. Like it's got access to social networks. You can access Twitter on it, Facebook, WhatsApp, WeChat, and it's called Swipe. And yeah, once it's done with its LCD screen and its internet connection and lithium ion battery, all that just goes straight in the trash. And there's no way to
Yeah,
recycle any
this
of
one
this
was
stuff
in.
either. And the
Yeah.
reason why is the vape juice is toxic. So the companies that are
Mm.
able to recycle lithium ion batteries, none of them are rated to handle toxic substances like this nicotine soaked cotton that's stuffed inside this device. So because the nicotine is there, there is no way to recycle this stuff right now. It's just all going in landfills, not even the special trash, like the normal trash that just gets dumped out there.
This feels like we're way past Black Mirror stuff, and now there's just a bunch of stupidity kind of taking over.
This is
With we've
idiocracy.
got
This is a different direction. This
exactly
is idiocracy.
right, and the guy I saw they're looking up houses on Zillow on their vape, which is freaking hilarious. Not even
It
Black
is
Mirror could think
funny.
of that. Yeah,
It is.
we're headed in the wrong
Mike
direction.
Judge. Mike Judge Go watch Idiocracy again. Mike Judge thought of this. You'll see stuff like this in Idiocracy, which came out in 2001. Go back and watch that movie.
I had not even heard of it, so I've got to check it out.
Yeah, so the plot of the movie is that like smart, responsible people have so much anxiety and are worried about doing the right thing that they don't procreate as much. So dumb people procreate more. So like in a couple of 100 years, everybody's dumb, and it's that's why it's called Idiocracy. Like the smart people are bred out of the gene pool, basically. And it's a hilarious and far too I don't know, some of it gets way too close to home. But
it's funny because it hurts.
Funny movie. Yeah. I mean, it's funny for different reasons now than the reasons it was funny when it came out. Yeah, they're playing games on the. Oh my God. Was this like a little Android device?
Things we didn't know we needed.
Probably running Android.
Seems like it. Yeah, you get Twitter on your vape now. It's concerning.
Yep. As if we needed another screen anyway, right? Like who has a vape and doesn't have a phone to look at? I don't know what this is filling in the market.
I think
this way I can leave my phone at home.
I think this is signaling the market top. Everything is downhill from here.
How does this get access to the internet? Is it through your phone? Or please don't tell me this thing has its own SIM. Or does it just connect to Wi-Fi? That wouldn't make sense.
Who knows? Maybe you should get one, Adrian, and let us know.
Nicotine is coffee and alcohol, but nicotine is not one of my things. I do like cigars, but not for the nicotine.
Agreed. Love cigars.
The process of smoking it. Yeah, connected via Bluetooth to my phone. Okay, so it gets to the internet through your phone. So
you have to have your phone and your vape. So you just want to look super cool by looking at your vape instead of your phone. Is that it?
Why is that person studying their vape so closely?
Why are they looking up directions on their vape?
All right. Yeah, it's too much. It's too much. That's why it's a squirrel story. All right. Katie, Darwin, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a blast.
As always, thanks for having me.
And a big thanks to everyone watching or listening to this week's episode of Enterprise Security Weekly. We will be back next week. See you then.